is VSiN, the sports betting network. This is the VSiN Morning Line on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Good morning, happy Thursday, and welcome into the VSiN Morning Line. I'm Grace Remington with Michael Lombardi and Harrison Sanford, getting you ready for the day ahead with betting advice, best bets, and all the news you need to know. Let's take a look at what's coming up on the show today. Plenty of guests for you. Simon Hunter kicking us off in this hour, 7:45 Eastern, with his NFL Week 5 betting preview. Josh Ingles from Covers.com giving us an MLB playoff betting breakdown. And then the one and only Mike Palm joining us at 9:15 Eastern with a Circa contest update and Palms pressing 3. Then coming up in this hour, we will be breaking down the Thursday night football game between the Falcons and the Bucs. We're taking a look at the best and worst ATS records for NFL teams and college football teams. Michael is giving us an update on his power rankings, and then we'll get into that betting preview with Simon Hunter. Before we get into the football, though, let's recap another exciting day of baseball. 3 teams go on to sweep the wild card race. That's the Tigers, ending the Stros' 7 consecutive years of appearances in the AL Championship Series. Great day if you're a Yankees fan. Harrison, looking at you. Royals sweep the Orioles. Just 4 runs combined in that series. So that was a tight one. And Bobby Witt, again, driving in the game-winning run there. That's where I cashed my bet. We went back to the well with the Royals' first 5 run line. That one cashed after a 1-1 tie. The Padres sweep the Braves after Max Fried has an implosion in the second inning. Braves had a short rally in the 8th inning, but ultimately it wasn't enough, falling 5-4. And then the Brewers force a Game 3. So that is the one Game 3 series we will have. That is today at 7 o'clock Eastern. We did not cash my bet in this game. Brewers' first 7 team total over 2.5. That third run came in the 8th inning. Had several hits through 5 innings. They just weren't stringing them together. But that'll be a fun one tonight. It'll be Jose Quintana, the lefty, going for the Mets against Tobias Myers, the righty, for the Brewers. Before we do get into football, Harrison, I did want to get a vibe check with you, because I'm sure that was a wave of relief seeing the Stros go down last night.
The only disappointment, guys, with the Astros getting knocked out of the postseason was that the Yankees didn't do the job. That it was the Tigers that ended up doing it. That's about that. I think overall, though, and maybe for the majority of Major League Baseball fans, this just makes me think about the series that we have coming up, what these wins by 2 of the 3 teams that we saw yesterday, what it really sets up for. If you look at the American League, now you have the Royals taking on the Yankees, and the Royals with their pitching, their ability with their pitching staff, it is going to be curious to see how they'll be able to manage, or how the Yankees will be able to manage against them. Obviously, you have Soto and you have Judge, but will the other guys be able to contribute, whether it be a Gleyber Torres, whether it be a Austin Wells, whether it be what is my friend's name who was traded in from the Marlins? Why is he escaping me? He'll come to me in a moment. Yeah, there we go. Whether it be Jazz Chisholm. Thank you, producer Elliot. Yeah. Will those other guys be able to contribute? And then on the other side, Grace, I think it's going to be fascinating to see this matchup between the Padres and the Dodgers. On name alone, most people would take the Dodgers. But if you look at the season series, the Padres actually won it. And with the issues that the Dodgers have with their pitching rotation right now, there is going to be a cause for concern. So I think almost everybody wants that dream matchup, Yankees-Dodgers, right? For the generic Major League Baseball fan. But that truly is going to be challenged in this upcoming round. Considering the competition that both sides will have. So fascinating to see it all happen, and overall fascinated for the weekend and stretch of sports we're about to have here between Major League Baseball playoffs, WNBA playoffs, and obviously NFL action, college football action. It is a beautiful time to be a sports fan and a beautiful time to be a sports bettor.
Yeah, love having a divisional matchup in the playoffs, and we could see that on the AL side too. sorry to say, if your Yankees lose, it'll be the Royals against either Detroit or Cleveland. And so the AL Central, who no one expected anything great from this year. I mean, the Twins were supposed to win it, but it was the middle three teams that made the playoffs. So that's kind of an interesting thing on that side as well. But given the sweeps last night, the biggest winner in all of this is Roger Goodell, because now his Thursday night football does not have to compete with playoff baseball. So
he wasn't going to be worried anyway.
You think so?
He wasn't going to be worried anyway. No, no. Football is king.
Well, maybe just a few less sweat drops coming off his brow because of that. One game to compete with, and it first pitch is an hour before this football game tonight. But let's get into this Bucs-Falcons game. It opened Falcons 3 points. The line has been getting smaller, going the Bucs' way. It now sits at 1.5 points with a total of 43.5. Michael, looking at this divisional matchup here, what is the one thing that stands out to you?
Well, I think the one thing that stands out is the Falcons have been fortunate to win 2 games, and they've lost 2 and won 2, and they're kind of, the numbers are not very good, and I think this is why we're seeing this line move towards Tampa, even though the game's being played in Atlanta. Atlanta doesn't have any explosive plays. They can't make an explosive play. They struggle on third down. They're 29th in the National Football League in third down. They're 29th in the red zone. So they just have struggled to make plays and score a lot of points. I think last week they were fortunate with a pass interference call that they got, just like they didn't get one in the Philadelphia game, in the game before against the Chiefs. So I just think, to me, when you look at Atlanta, they've got a bunch of injuries in their offensive line, which is a problem. Troy Anderson, their inside linebacker, who was a very good player for them, he's out with a knee injury. He's not going to play, so they're down another defensive player. They're down defensive linemen, and this Bucs team is really good. I mean, they can move the football. They're 7th in the league in scoring in drives that end up in a score, and this year with Buck Irvin, they're able to run the football. I mean, he's averaging 5.8 yards per carry, which is something that was unheard of back in the day. So this is a good team. They make explosive plays. They went into Atlanta last year and beat them on a last-second throw from Baker Mayfield on the 2-minute drill. So, Harrison, I think, to me, Tampa's playing really well like they did last week against Philly. Atlanta's winning, but their numbers don't look like a winning team.
Yeah, it's going to be curious to see how explosive this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense is going to be going up against Atlanta, as you were pointing out, Michael. We do have some injuries on that side of the ball that maybe have it a cause for concern. Jalen McMillan is going to be out. Trey Palmer is going to be out. So we're going to want to see what they can do there. You also have Luke Godecki, who's going to be out, the tackle there for the Buccaneers as well. So I'm curious on both sides. There's a lot of injuries on both sides, and with it being a short week, I don't know if I can call this game, Michael, per se, but I will say that this is definitely a game that seems like it's going to trend towards the under. And obviously, with this being another divisional matchup here for the Falcons, it's going to be curious. I'm going to be interested to see how this really affects the division's odds, Grace, because if you look at the schedule here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, after they play this game, they're going to go at the Saints, then they have the Ravens, then they play the Falcons again, at the Chiefs, then versus the 49ers. That is a tough 5-game stretch for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. So I think because of that, I would not be surprised to see maybe some of the odd shift depending on who wins this game. And I haven't been afraid to say it. I still think the Falcons are going to win this division. I think if they end up pulling off this game and remember, they beat the Saints last week, it's going to be, from a record standpoint, it's going to be their division to lose, even though they have not played inspiring football for the most part. We have to recognize as well that they have played one of the toughest schedules so far in the NFL so far this season, and they have one of the easiest remaining strength of schedules for the remainder of the year. So while they haven't been inspiring per se, the odds seem to be in their favor.
Yeah, the Falcons right now, the plus 160 favorite to win the NFC South. Buccaneers not far behind at plus 185, with the Saints at plus 220. And then there's the Panthers at 30-1. So you're right. I mean, this game will shift everything in this division tonight. What about these defenses, Michael? Because both of them are below average, but we know Todd Bowles could wreak some havoc on Kirk Cousins.
Well, Todd does a great job in blitzing. I mean, if you watch that Eagle game, Kellen Moore had no idea how to block any of the blitzes that Todd was throwing up against him. And look, this is the one thing you have to understand about this defense for the Bucs is they're going to give up some plays, but they're going to make enough of them, and they're good when they get you down in the red zone. So whereas the Falcons are not a very good third down team. They give up 47.4% of third downs than their opponent. And offensively, they've only converted 10 third downs in 4 games. Think about that. And so, to me, this is a game where I think they're going to take advantage of attacking the protections of Atlanta. They're going to try to force Kirk Cousins off his spot. And if Vita Vea plays in there, the Bucs are susceptible to a run game. But if Vita Vea plays in there, Atlanta will struggle. Especially Todd will set the edge on both sides. We've got to check on Robinson. I know he practiced, but I think to me that's the one thing that you're always worried about. Is he going to be 100% healthy for the game? So that's the way I see that one, Harrison.
Yeah, Vita Vea obviously going to be curious to see if he's in that lineup, and it makes me kind of hesitant until we get full clarification on if he will be participating in this matchup. I also know that Vita Vea was a limited participant yesterday, and then you also have Antoine Winfield, who will not be participating in tonight's game as well. Grace, we have a wealth of injuries for Thursday Night Football, and it does make it a little bit dicey to make one play or another in terms of a side until we get some full clarification.
Yeah, the Bucs dealing with some wide receiver depth too. So just make sure you turn those notifications on and you're getting that injury report a couple hours before kickoff, before placing your wagers. All right, coming up next, we are looking at the best and worst teams against the spread this season. There was one NFL team that may surprise you in college. Well, there's a whole bunch of surprises. We're talking those next on the VSiN Morning Line.
Time. There's nothing more valuable. It's what drives everyone to make the most of every moment. We celebrate living large in the now. In a city where time disappears, we create experiences that electrify the soul and memories that will last forever. We go big, we go all night, and here, everyone is invited. So get loose and get loud.
This is Circa. You'll have the time of your life.
Coming up Thursday on Follow the Money, college football, NFL, MLB playoffs. We go over all the games, previews, picks with Paul Charchian, Brad Powers, and the meat man Steve Wiss with Soccer Plays. Follow the Money weekdays, 4 to 7 Eastern on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Want to see who at VSiN is on a hot streak? Go to VSiN.com/picks to see all the selections and weekly leaderboard of VSiN hosts, writers, and guests. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber and get every pick sent to your inbox daily. Just head to VSiN.com/pro.
So, Paulie, have you had a chance to read the VSiN Daily yet?
Yeah, came in at 3 a.m. What's Bill doing up that late?
Well, rumor has it, it starts off with a 12-hour meditation session.
Then he just pours himself over film and live TV, really focusing and taking it all in. Bill's in with the biggest insiders, talking trade secrets, strategies, the whole nine, absorbing the info.
And then and only then can the writing process begin.
In Las Vegas, Bill's late night becomes your early morning. Wake up to the very latest betting insights in your inbox with the VSiN Daily. Sign up for free at vsin.com/newsletter.
You're watching the VSiN Morning Line right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to the VSiN Morning Line. Harrison Sanford, Michael Lombardi, and Grace Remington joining you on this Thursday morning as we kick off a new week of the NFL season. And as we kick off the new week of the NFL season, maybe one of the biggest questions going into week 5 is, where will Devante Adams end up? It has been somewhat of a controversy dating back for at least 2 weeks now, and has been updated to Devante Adams requesting a trade. As of yesterday, we were hearing different reports that his preferred destinations were the New Orleans Saints, where Derek Carr resides, and the New York Jets, where Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback. These are two former teammates that Devante Adams has had, and in fact, DraftKings actually has a market out available saying that the Jets are the favorite. Want to get to Antonio Pierce sound in just a moment, but Michael, your reaction to everything that's happened so far and where we are in this current moment with Devante Adams and his beef with the Las Vegas Raiders.
Well, I mean, we saw this coming for a long time, and I think to me this is just a culmination of him not getting a new contract, not being happy with the quarterback situation, not being happy with the environment. I mean, look, Antonio Pierce, as I wrote about this back in March. He has a hard job because there's only been 2 NFL coaches who have gone from the interim label to have successful NFL careers. And one of them was Jason Garrett. The other one was Doug Marrone down in Jacksonville. But other than that, most interim coaches that get promoted because the locker room loves them ends up getting sent packing after a while because they can't have the locker room love them when they change. They always have to change to run the team. And I think Pierce is learning this hard lesson that, you know, he's got to be different than he was when he took over for Josh McDaniels. He was player friendly. Everybody loved him because he wasn't Josh. Now he's his own man and he can't run the room. I mean, now I see him. He actually has a call sheet on the sideline. So he's trying to show the players that he's doing things that he never did before. So there's kind of a disconnect there. Look, yesterday we had reports, well, Dallas is interested. Of course, Dallas comes out and says they're not, because anybody who has any common sense knows Dallas needs a defensive tackle and they need a running back. They don't need another $16 million receiver. That's why they're paying Brandon Cooks, whether you like them or not. That's what they're paying them. So to me, this is really about the Jets. I can't imagine the Saints take them on. But because of all the debt they have next year, they're going to be over $100 million on the cap. And so I'm sure if the Saints could get him for a really cheap deal, they might take him and look at him for a year to team him up with Carr. But in reality, I think this is only one landing spot, Harrison. I think it's the Jets.
You're going to be curious to see how it all pans out and when it obviously pans out as well. If you want Devante Adams, I would imagine you want him in your locker room as soon as possible, considering that we're already at week 5 of the NFL season. You mentioned Antonio Pierce and how he's trying to adjust from being an interim head coach to being a full-time head coach. I will say this. He did handle yesterday's press conference as if he was a 10-year head coaching veteran. Here is the Vegas Raiders head coach.
Davante's dealing with a hamstring. He's rehabbing, and the rest of us are focused on Denver.
You're going to be here in the building today? Or?
He's supposed to be rehabbing.
So yesterday, Davante went on the Up and Adams show and discussed, a social media post earlier this week. Is that something that was accidental on your part in terms of liking the post? Or?
Yeah, I'm just focused on Denver.
Have you communicated with Davante, and where was the relationship with you?
And me and Davante talk often.
Have you talked to him since all of this?
I believe that between me and Davante.
That's great. I love it. You know, Antonio Pierce is getting praise for being a veteran NFL coach. If Belichick did this, he wasn't being very friendly to the media. I mean, that's exactly what he has to say is nothing, because whatever conversation he has with Davante is between him and Davante. But look, I think there is friction. I don't think everybody understands it. His comments last week about having to be a professional, and there's going to be business decisions in the building. I mean, Max Crosby doesn't show up to the game. Nobody's addressed that. Why? The guy had a hamstring injury. I mean, Tua's traveling with the team with a concussion. How does a guy not show up to the game with a hamstring injury, Harrison? So, yeah, I think Pierce did a really good job. I think, he followed the Belichick program, which is say very little, especially when it comes with interpersonal relationships.
As it looks right now, from a betting standpoint, the Las Vegas Raiders are a 2-2 team against the spread. We'll continue to investigate this Las Vegas Raiders situation as the season continues. And best believe if there are any developments that happen with the situation while we are on air, we will definitely continue to update you. But as it pertains to the ATS record, the Raiders are 2-2. But if you look at their division, there is actually one surprise when it comes to an ATS record. Denver Broncos are 3-1 ATS so far this year with Bo Nix in his rookie season at quarterback there. And overall, it leads us to looking at some overall ATS records that really might help influence us as bettors in this NFL season. Let's take a look at some of the best NFL teams according to against the spread. The Minnesota Vikings, who have shocked a lot of people, 4-0 against the spread. The Indianapolis Colts, 3-1 alongside the Saints, Commanders, Broncos, Steelers, and Buccaneers, who are in action tonight, as well as the Bears and Lions. As you look at that list of some of the best ATS teams in the NFL, Michael, which one of those or which couple of those stands out to you?
Well, I mean, I think the Commanders have been so impressive because, you know, they went down to Tampa. He got blitzed on almost every single play, Jaden Daniels, and now they've won 3 straight, and they've really won convincingly. I mean, they have won convincingly and going away. And now, you know, we've spent most of the offseason thinking they were going to be an underdog in most every single game. You know, other than the Giant game, week 2, where it was a close game, they have really been very powerful offensively. And as bad as they are defensively, numerically, I think you got to give them a ton of credit. I think they look right now like the best team in the East. Look, the Eagles are 3-10 over the last 13 games. No matter what we want to talk about, no matter what we want to say or offer excuses for them, that's what the records are. And I think, to me, that's going to be an issue for them moving forward. Can they get Hurts to play at a higher level? I think that's an issue. So, to me, I think Washington is one of those teams stand out.
Yeah, definitely something to pay attention to. And I think it's going to be interesting as we go forward, though, Michael, even though, let's say, a team like the Minnesota Vikings, 4-0 against the spread now, at a certain point, I think the public is going to learn to respect the Minnesota Vikings, particularly if they keep on having wins like they had this past weekend against the Green Bay Packers. And so maybe that ATS record, because of the perception of the team and maybe the data points that we have on the team, really justify a different number that has previously been out there. And maybe there's no longer as much incentive to back those teams. But as it currently stands, those teams are cashing out if you're betting on them on NFL Sundays or Thursdays or Mondays. Let's go to the teams that play on Saturdays. College football ATS records. There are a number of teams that are definitely helping those bettors if you are a backer out there in the marketplace. Two teams at 5-0 as it currently stands. BYU 5-0 against the spread. Eastern Michigan, if you're an Eastern Michigan backer, 5-0 against the spread. Some other teams that are definitely of note: Pittsburgh 4-0, Army 4-0, Marshall 4-0. And even you have some teams like Nebraska with Matt Rule there at head coach at 4-1, and Kentucky, who has been surprising teams, whether they're in tough games and still losing or actually winning games outright, i.e. Ole Miss at 4-1 as well. Grace, which one of those teams or a number of those teams stand out to you?
Yeah, well, looking at the teams that have the winning ATS records, BYU stands out, obviously 5-0 ATS, but 5-0 straight up. Also, they really improved their defense in the offseason and stayed true to some of their homegrown talent. They have some great wide receivers. Their quarterback, Jake Retzlaff, is doing really well. Army 4-0, I think, is impressive. They're actually throwing the ball now. Texas, that's as expected. They're the type that they don't let up with these massive spreads late in the game. But some of these bad ATS teams, here's the thing. Some of these you have to take with a grain of salt, because if Oregon is not covering as a 35-point favorite against a directional school on the border of Canada, I don't really care. Like, what does that tell me, you know? So that's kind of the problem with college football, at least when you're looking at the NFL ATS records. I mean, you think about an NFL power rating, there might be 8 to 10 points of separation from top to bottom, and even that feels like a lot. On a college football power rating, you could have the best team a 35, the worst team in the country could be negative 35. So that's a 70-point difference. So there's just a lot more variance, and especially in the start of these schedules, a lot of these Power 4, Power 5 schools are playing cupcake teams, and they're anywhere from 24 to 40-point favorites. So that doesn't really help me going on. Once they get into conference play, I think the true schedule starts here at week 4, week 5, week 6, when we're getting into conference play. But looking at a few of these losing ATS records, Oregon, Georgia, Arizona, it's kind of something that I harp on all the time. It's perception, right? So those teams maybe a little bit overvalued in the market heading into the season. NC State being 0-5 on the closing line, that one is truly surprising because so many people were high on them coming into this year. And just looking at some of their spreads here, they were a 32.5-point favorite against Western Carolina. That one came close. They were an 8-point dog to Tennessee. That was an absolute blowout. So that one was a huge perception issue. But I think for college, just take these with a grain of salt moving forward.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with you on that, particularly now that we are in conference play, and those wins, just wins themselves, matter a lot more as we try to get down to the college football playoff. All right, coming up next, Michael gives his top 5 teams in the NFL and also his bottom.
And they're off.
The only thing better than football is the excitement of all the contests. Catch the Circa Friday Football Invitational at 9 p.m. Eastern with picks from some of the sharpest bettors around the country. Then on Saturdays at 9, watch the Football Contest Show, where our expert hosts and guests go through the consensus choices for some of the biggest betting contests in the world. The fun doesn't stop there. Visit VSiN.com for the full lineup and join us on the Sports Betting Network.
This is VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
You're watching the VSiN Morning Line right here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Welcome back into the VSiN Morning Line. It is a Thursday, which means we are getting a look at Michael Lombardi's updated power rankings. We're going to start with the top 5. At number 1, he has the undefeated Minnesota Vikings. At number 2, the Baltimore Ravens. At 3, the Detroit Lions. Number 4, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And number 5, the New Orleans Saints. Dropping out of the top 5 are the Bills, Chiefs, and Packers. So, Michael, why don't you explain for us your reasoning for this new top tier here?
Well, it's all based on numbers. I mean, one of the things about the National Football League is you divide the league into quadrants, right? So it's every 4 games, you have a pretty good idea about where your team stands, what you need to improve on, what areas you must keep continuing to strengthen, what areas you need to improve, all those things. So my numbers are not any biased in it. I'm not watching the tape and saying that I don't think Minnesota is the number 1 team in the league. I actually think Detroit's a better team overall. But that being said, the numbers come out where Minnesota's numbers are really impressive. I mean, it's the other team that's really impressive are the Saints. I mean, their numbers are 2-2, but they're 2 plays away from being undefeated, and their numbers back it up. So what I try to do with my model is take away emotion out of it. Like the teams to tell me who they are. And when you go over the 18 categories of what they're in, whether it's turnover margin, offensive rating, fourth quarter production, offensive line, sack percentage, red zone offense, third down, how many third downs they convert per game, all those things, when they add into the numbers, you come up with who has the lowest score. And those are the categories that matter towards winning. It's one thing to have, average per rush, but average per rush doesn't equate to winning. So I think to me, that's what I tried to do. And that's why, when I look at it and I look at the top 5, there are some really good. I mean, Pittsburgh has played really good defensively. Last week, we saw Justin Fields throw the ball effectively. I mean, Shane Steichen gave him every opportunity to get back in the game. He doesn't run the ball on 2 downs, and they've got a chance. If they don't mess up that snap, they got a chance to win the game. So, Baltimore can't play any defense, but they can run the ball and they can stop the run. They have a hard time playing pass defense. And I think New Orleans is undervalued. I think they're undervalued. That line against Kansas City went from 5.5 down to 4.5. Now it's back up to 5.5.
Yeah, Michael, as I look at this list of the top 5 teams, I think the Steelers are the one that jump out to me the most. Not just the fact that they lost last week, and I know the numbers will back them up. That's why you have them there. But I must say, or I must feel like some of those numbers must just be skewed because of the quality of opponent that they had last week in the Indianapolis Colts, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. I think there's still, yes, I know Justin Fields has been playing better, and I know he had a lot of passing yards in that last game in that comeback effort, but they still lost the game, and I still think there's going to be a wealth of concern about their ability to play when trailing. Yes, they were able to make it a game last week against the Indianapolis Colts by passing the ball, but I don't feel as if there's a week-to-week belief that they can actually have a passing game that's sustainable of a top 5 power ranking for the remainder of the season. What are your thoughts on how much maybe the Indianapolis Colts game influenced the numbers and influenced their rankings?
Well, I mean, they threw the football when they had to throw it to get back in the game. You got to give them credit. I don't disagree with you. I think, to me, these numbers are predicated on who you play, but you can't change that, right? They can't schedule, even though Navy's undefeated, they can't schedule Navy, right? And so I think, to me, that's what you have to do. Now, when you put them, and when I do my power rankings versus one team, when Pittsburgh's playing against, you have to take that into account. I agree, Harrison, but in terms of when you're looking at overall production, it's a little bit like rushes and completions. When you add the rushes and completions together, it doesn't tell you who won the game. It by far tells you that, but it tells you whose execution is better in the game. And, I think we saw this. Dan Quinn put out last week that he wants his team to have 55 rushes and completions. Well, that means their execution's really good. And so this tells you that their execution in the games they're playing are good. It doesn't necessarily always tell you who's the better team, because if you try to do it subjectively by the eye test, you're never going to get that right, Harrison.
I can definitely
Go ahead,
Grace.
Go ahead, Grace.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask about the Bills and Ravens because that is what jumped out to me at first, and I think a lot of other people would also notice that. Last week you had the Bills at number 1. The Ravens were 6 or 7, I believe. If they were 7, they were behind the 49ers. What impacted this ranking the most from that game? Because if Ravens are number 2, the number 1 team just lost to the number 2 team, and now they're not worthy of being in the top 5. So I just kind of wanted you to explain that scenario.
Well, when you're 26th in third down offense, that's a huge number. When you're 29th in red zone defense, that's a huge number. When you're 31st in punts per play, that's a huge number. And so when those huge numbers start getting in there, you're 22nd on third down defense. Those start numbers, they put you up there, and all of a sudden that goes. Whereas Baltimore across the board, the highest number that they have within their ranking, the highest number is third down offense. They're 19th. Everything else, they are below 20. So when you look at Buffalo and you look at where they are, when you're bad on third down offense, you're having a hard time playing third down defense. Your red zone defense is 29th in the National Football League. Your numbers are going to get increased. And I think after 4 weeks, look, been 3 teams that have basically taken the ball and run it down Buffalo's throat. Arizona, we saw them do that. We saw them, in week 2 of the season. Miami couldn't run the football, but they were actually able to run the ball enough to where they gained over 130 yards. And then last week, we saw Baltimore just run up and down the field. So there is deficiencies in Buffalo, but it's just not me saying one team's better than the other. This is just what the numbers say. And when you put the numbers in there, now they can improve. There's going to be a team that's trending in the right direction. But after 4 weeks, I think it's pretty clear their numbers are horrendous. It's the same thing when, we look at the bottom teams. I know you guys both talked about how's Philadelphia the 30th ranked team. Well, when you look at Philly, their quarterback rating's 23rd. Their turnover margin's 31st. They're 30th in defensive sacks per pass play, right? They're 29th in red zone defense. They're 24th in punts per play. They're 31st in giveaways. They're 28th in fourth quarter defense. What are you going to do, defend them? That's what they are, right? Right, Grace? That's what they are. You're an analytical person. You see the numbers. And so, to me, you just take that as a grain, as one part of the pie before you put together your model.
Yeah, let's get into the bottom 5, and I'll read those out loud for the listeners who may not have seen the graphic. At 28, we have the Miami Dolphins. 29, the New England Patriots. 30 is the Philadelphia Eagles. 31, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And 32, the Carolina Panthers. So, Michael, where did you have the Eagles before this week?
Well, I think I have to go back and look at my sheet last week, but I think I had the Eagles much higher. But, with that number, the Tampa Bay whooping and the turnovers in Tampa and all those things that affected their number, I think this is the first week that I have real numbers because we have 4 true games. Now, next week, the Eagles aren't going to play, so their numbers aren't going to change, but they will change based on the variables of other teams, right? So other teams' numbers are going to move around. But I think now, actually, after 4 weeks, I have fairly solid numbers. And look, hey, here's the thing. You want to defend Philly? They're 3-10 over the last 13 games. At some point, you got to take the perception out of it. I know that they're supposed to be a Super Bowl team. I thought they would easily win the East. We all misjudged their talent acquisition. They signed Bryce Huff, and they pay him $70 million, and he hasn't even gotten the pressure on a quarterback, right? They can't cover anybody. Jalen Hurts is still turning the ball over at a rapid rate. We can ignore it if we want. We could be like Philadelphia Eagle fans and say we're going to go to the Super Bowl no matter what happens on the field. But you have to look at what happens on the field, Harrison.
Yeah, I could definitely understand that. But I think you also have to factor in the absences as well. Not having A.J. Brown for 3 straight weeks has definitely impacted that offense. And obviously not having Devante Smith for their last game has impacted them as well. I think the one curious thing for me, we know the Carolina Panthers aren't a good team. But, man, I would have thought with Andy Dalton out there that they maybe would have creeped up a spot or two because of how they played, obviously, in getting that win 2 weeks ago. And even though they lost to the Bengals, have shown to be a better team with him out there as their starter.
Well, see, I think that's a great point, Harrison. That's a great point. I mean, you think so, but they're 28th on third down offense. They're 27th in yards per attempt passing. They're 31st in points per play allowed defensively. They're 29th in third down defense. They're 31st in defensive sack per play. Sheesh. Right? I mean, so like, stop me when you get a good play. Stop me when you get a good number. I mean, that's what they are. You can't defend it. You know, your eye can tell you something. It's like it's basically the gambler fallacy. Well, it's rained 3 days in a row, so it's going to be sunny tomorrow. Well, okay, it ain't going to be sunny tomorrow. It just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, it might take a while for those Panthers stats to normalize. Okay, thank you, Michael. Coming up next, it is time to book some best bets. Simon Hunter of the Action Network joins us next with a look at the NFL slate. You're listening to the VSiN Morning Line.
In the heart of downtown Las Vegas, a sports oasis awaits. Stadium Swim, the ultimate outdoor amphitheater, built for the ultimate sports fan, with a colossal screen that brings the game closer than ever. Reserve a daybed, private cabana, or lounge in the center of it all. 6 pools to dive into as the game heats up. And the best part, there's never an off-season. Open 365 days a year. Stadium Swim, it's always spectator season.
VSiN's got you covered for the start of the season with our football special. For $175, you'll get access to everything VSiN has to offer. With VSiN Pro, you'll receive daily picks straight to your inbox, detailed analysis on every game, and exclusive data like our betting splits to help you become a sharper bettor. Get all of this for just $175 through the Super Bowl. Or try a monthly subscription and get your first 30 days for only $9.99. Don't miss out on this offer. Sign up now at VSiN.com/subscribe.
You're watching the VSiN Morning Line right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to the VSiN Morning Line as we open up a new week of football on the college slate and on the NFL slate. And we do have a Thursday night football game going down tonight between the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Best believe we will continue to break down that game as we continue throughout the show. But overall, guys, it's just a good time to be a football fan. We have 55, count it, 55 straight days of football on the way, whether it's college football or the NFL. Grace, there will be no limit to how many bets we could place and how much we can be entertained by the action on the gridiron over this next, I think it goes until late November? What a time to be alive.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm so excited. I was just clicking through the schedule here. Next weekend is the massive one for college football. You got USC, Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State. Who cares? I'm looking at Wednesday night, Florida International, UTEP, Western Kentucky, Sam Houston. Maction's going to start. Oh, this is the best time of the year to be a sports bettor.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, no
great time to be a sports bettor.
You get those.
Go ahead, Michael.
When you get those great college games, when you get those great college games like we had last week with Alabama and Georgia, and it just continues, I think it's just tremendous. So, yeah, I think, this is the best time of the year, and you sprinkle in, the great baseball timing. I think it's awesome, Harrison.
Yeah, definitely as enjoyable. I would imagine, though, Michael, that maybe as somebody who's looking at tape, or even for people who have been scouts before, it could be somewhat tedious as well. But maybe we'll touch on that later on in the show. From a betting standpoint, it could be tedious as well. So we're going to need some help. So joining us now, NFL betting analyst from the Action Network on the Progressive Guest Line is Simon Hunter. And he's got a number of best bets for us as we head into week 5 of NFL action. And we'll go to the big-time matchup in the AFC North. The Bengals finally got off the snide with their first win of the season this past week against the Carolina Panthers. They're taking on a team in the Baltimore Ravens who are number 2 in Michael's power rankings. How are you looking at this one, Simon? And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. I'm definitely looking at playing the dog here, right? Divisional home dog in this situation tends to be profitable. So we saw this number get up to +3. The professionals came in, they bet it back down to +2.5, and that feels like where the number should be. At +3, there was just too much value on this Bengals team. So I can see why the public loves this Ravens team. I think it's too much love, though, right? The number moved, 1.5 just because they blew out that Bills team. That's a little bit too much respect to this Ravens team that we've seen this year. They've been inconsistent, right? They're up and down. They're still trying to figure out their identity on defense with the new defensive coordinator. And offensively, I think teams are going to realize if you just attack the run, make Lamar pass, that's how you're going to beat this Ravens team. So, for this divisional matchup, I definitely like this Ravens here with the points with the Bengals.
Yeah, Simon, I think to me you're right. I mean, this is a funny game because Burrow can throw the ball. The Ravens' pass defense isn't very good, and the Ravens can run the ball, and the Bengals' run defense isn't very good. So it's a match on strengths, but I have a feeling this game's coming down to the end, and getting 2.5 is probably the best bet. I listen to you guys every week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you and Chad Millman at the Action Network on your pod, and you guys were talking a lot about this Ram game, and, Chad wanted to take the Packers, but you were pretty steadfast on the Rams. Tell us why.
Yeah, I think that's a classic Chad mistake, right? That's the betting public thinking one way when the professionals see that line a different way. And I just basically was telling him that he was taking a bad number. He wanted to take Green Bay at -3.5, and my whole point to him was, don't do that. The professionals are going to come in here heavy on this Rams team at +3.5. This number is going to go down to 3. And now we wake up today and the number is down to 3. So it is a classic case that if you do like the Rams, I think you might be able to get the 3.5 again. I think as the week goes along here, more money will come in. But my view of it of Green Bay is they are a good team that still has questions on the defensive side. And I think the Rams right now are sneakily one of the best run teams in all of football. So I think they'll be able to control the line of scrimmage, run the ball with Williams. And Stafford having back-to-back really bad weeks is not common practice. I know people are saying, well, he doesn't have his main weapons there. He's getting more comfortable as we see the weeks go along here. So to me, this is the classic pros versus Joes, a trap line that the books lay for the public to come in on. And I like the Rams here at +3, especially on the money line. Just a little bet on the money line for this Rams team to pull the upset off.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with you. I mean, I think you're right. And look, let's face it, the Rams go into Arizona and get blown out. But Stafford's played at MVP level. Then they go to Chicago and they move the ball, but they can't close it down. Chicago's defense was good. I agree. And I think this Packer defense, look, they get behind so quickly against Minnesota. This, Matthew Stafford is having, and nobody's going to know about it, but he's having a sensational year, really. And I think he can carry him. And I don't see the Rams playing 2 bad games in a row with Sean McVay. I agree. All right, let's go to Houston and Buffalo. But everybody loves Buffalo, except when you look at Buffalo's numbers, what they've done defensively and how they play the run. And if Joe Mixon's back in this game, I mean, this could be a breakout game for the Texans offense. They are really a 60% pass team. If they can run the ball against a very soft Buffalo run defense, I think your Texan play is the right play. Go ahead and explain why you like them.
And again, another game where the line, to me, has just moved too much. I wanted to be on the Bills. They were +2 Sunday night. I was like, okay, that's good value on this Bills team against a Houston team that is just slightly overrated, right? They're 0-4 against the spread this season. The books kind of knew the public loved them, and they kept hanging their number a little high, and the public has been burned on it. Now it's gone the other way, right? There's too much love for this Bills team when you just nailed it. The Bills beat up on 3 bad teams, and then they played a real team, and they got dominated. Now, do I think the Bills are that bad? No. But I think they do have major issues, which all of us saw coming into the season, right? They do not have that reliable number 1 receiver on 3rd down. The defense can be attacked in the middle of the field. Now we have a guy in CJ who loves to attack teams in the middle of the field. So you're right. I was hoping Joe Mixon was going to be back. He still has not practiced this week. It's obviously a step down going to Cam Akers, right? That's why he's their backup there. But to me, this game all goes on to CJ and what he's going to be this season, right? The expectations for him are high, and it's well-deserved. He really laid an egg against the Vikings team. And to me, that's the best team he's faced this season, the best defense he's played this season. So, Sean McDermott's going to have that game film. He's going to know to throw some exotic blitz packages at him, just like Flores did. Can he bounce back from that spot? So to me, all the value right now is on Houston at +1, +1.5. You have to kind of take that number here against the Bills. They're going to be another heavily bet public team where Houston, I think the books are finally going to catch up to, and the value will finally switch to Houston as a dog. Last year, when he was a dog, CJ, he was 6-3 against the spread. As a favorite, he's 3-7. So we see, you don't want to bet CJ when he's a favorite, but as a dog, he's been very profitable.
Let's move to the Sunday night football game. Simon, Pittsburgh on the look ahead was the 1-point dog. They reopened as the 1-point favorite, and that line has since moved their way to 2.5 as a few sharp moves have come in on the Steelers. How are you looking at this game?
Yeah, injuries. That was, to me, was the biggest movement in this number, where, Dallas was already incredibly thin on the defensive line. And now there might be no Dexter Lawrence, no Micah Parsons. That's got to be a huge deal to a defense that's already terrible. So looking at this matchup, everything about this plays into what the Steelers' strengths are. The Steelers want to attack an offense that needs to pass the ball. That's all they can do in Dallas right now. Dallas's identity is just terrible. They have no run game offensively, and they can't stop the run defensively. So I don't care if it's Cordell Patterson as the running back for Pittsburgh. The read option is with Justin Fields is going to torture this very thin, not healthy defensive line in Dallas. And offensively, if you're having Dak drop back and throw it 35 to 40 times against Pittsburgh, they're going to lose every time. That's the new NFL. They want you to do that. They want teams to pass the ball because that's where the risk happens, right? That's where teams can turn you over. So we see it time and time again when Pittsburgh plays against a run-heavy team like the Colts last week, they can be beat. When they face teams that need to pass the ball, that's when they dominate. So looking at this matchup, this is just the dream scenario for TJ Watt, right? He's going to be in a position to at least pick up 1 to 2 sacks in this game against Dak and a couple of rookie tackles. It's just a really bad matchup for this Dallas team.
Simon, we don't have too much more time left.
What's your favorite play of the week?
Favorite play that we didn't even talk about, I'd probably go with the Monday night in the Saints game. I love the matchup for the Saints team against Kansas City.
Me too.
Kansas City's offense is from the Stone Age, which there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're facing teams that can push the ball downfield like this New Orleans Saints team, they're going to eventually take the top off you. So I love this matchup for them, and I really still have many questions about this Chiefs team going forward. Not so much in December, but right now as we sit here in October, there's still questions to have about this team.
Simon, thank you for joining us, and enjoy the game tonight.
Thanks, guys.
All right, coming up next, Robert Saleh tries to clear up his beef with Aaron Rodgers. That and much more on the VSiN Morning Line.
A new football season means a new lineup on VSiN. Start your day with sharp betting analysis.